Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi everybody and welcome to one of the last weeks of the year. This is just crazy. I think we only have probably 2 weekly wrap-ups left before the end. Let me see. Okay, I guess there's 3. I'm not sure if I'll have one for the very last Sunday of the year. Because I'm not sure when I'm going to get back from visiting my family, but we'll see. Either way, I can't believe it. If you notice in the last weeks, a lot of my favorite lists are starting to come out. This year I decided to expand that and just do more for some of the subgenres. I probably won't end up doing them for all of the ones, but for the different like categories that I track, you know, my contemporary and mafia, romance, and historicals, I'm making separate lists. I still have planned a favorite audiobooks of the year. I'll be filming that. I will be doing my favorite small town romances because that's mostly what I read in contemporary, so I'm kind of going to do it that way. I'm going to do also oh, there's one other one. Favorite audiobooks. Favorite fantasies. I'll be doing those. And then I will be doing my, you know, disliked one. The one video a year where I just go all in on everything that I really didn't like this year, which is always a fun one. And it's the one that I'm like, if you're one of my author friends who are watching this, don't watch it. I get really sassy with it. I obviously still love you all. But yeah, we're going to do our weekly wrap up here. I do have a couple of announcements, of course. As I've said on my Patreon this month, I am doing a month of giveaways. You can be a free member, paid member, member of the public looking, and you can be a part of those because they're all open to everybody. I'm also giving away some free memberships that are that last for 2 months, and you'll get all the benefits of it without having to pay anything, to see if supporting me in the new year is something you might be interested in. This is something that Patreon just started, which is kind of cool because YouTube's allowed this for a while, but I don't do enough live shows for it to be like a huge thing with me or anything. But I did do the first giveaway of memberships yesterday. I gave away 5 of them. And also, if you were a canceled member or you're a member who's on a tier that's like below the one I'm giving away, you can get it because I am giving away faithful follower memberships, which means you get access to my vlogs, you get access to all of the exclusive videos, so you can come check me out there. I will be doing another giveaway maybe next Saturday, or maybe just a surprise somewhere, because I like giving away things, and giving away the memberships, it doesn't cost me anything and it doesn't cost you anything, and you get a lot of content for it, so I think it's really great. And then I so far have 4 giveaways listed. All the giveaways will stay open through the whole month, and I'm going to keep them open until Christmas Day. And then when I get back from my vacation, I will draw all the winners. So far there's 4 of them open. There's a historical romance giveaway, a dark romance giveaway, an alien romance giveaway. It has lots of goodies and stuff in there, so definitely check that out. I do have a new patron who is a new paid member to welcome. So Kat, thank you so much for joining my Patreon. That means so much. And again, there are 3 new free members, but we'll see if they stick around before they get a shout out here, but they do have access to everything, which is great. And we also have a new channel member, which is awesome. There is Swim in the Rain. I love your title name, which is at a Faded Friend level. So we have some new supporters in the holiday season. I love it. Love to see it. One final thing that I am doing for it is I just decided to, just yesterday, I added a couple new like patterns to some of my projects in Etsy. And so through Tuesday, I'm going to do free shipping, because if you order by Tuesday, I can almost guarantee that you'll get everything before Christmas. So if you're looking for some stocking stuffers, or you just want to take advantage of free shipping, I gotta tell you, offering the free shipping is often a better deal than any percentage off that I offer, just being honest, because shipping, depending on the order, it can be a really good one. There is a 3-item minimum, you know, so you can't just buy a keychain and get free shipping, but you could buy 3 keychains, or you could buy some of the tissue covers. I haven't showed these in forever because they make me feel a little bit like a grandma, but in a good way. I love these. So this is a pattern I added last year that it fits little tissues for your purse. So it fits one of these like plastic tissue containers. It keeps them from crinkling in your purse, as well as it just looks cute. So these are fun. I have those on my shop. I have them in some different patterns. I added these fun little sun and moon pattern. And then I added a couple of keychains of those too, just because I love making the keychains. They don't sell that well, but I have fun. And then, of course, as always, I have my book sleeves. So yeah, free shipping through Tuesday on the Etsy shop. Definitely take advantage of that. Like I said, it's usually the best deal that's offered, even more than when I have like 30% off or something, because free shipping, you guys know, shipping's wild. But I wanted to do something that to give back in a way while you're also helping me at the same time. It's what it is. Okay, so we wasted enough time on announcements, but you know, they're important. Gotta pump out the business if we can, or pimp out the business. I don't know what I'm saying, but anyway. Also, I'm really sorry about the lighting and everything. I'm filming as usual pretty early in the morning because I have stuff going on this afternoon. And the lighting, I mean, we're almost at the darkest day of the year. It is gloomy, and you know, I like a gloomy day in the summer because it's a reason to stand and read. But this time of year, it's not my thing. It's not my thing. But that's all right. I'm going to talk about books with you for the next, like, probably 30-40 minutes. So that should make me happy here. Okay, so first off, I have a book that I've already talked about in a video because it ended up being my favorite mafia romance I read this year. And I gave it 6 stars. It's going to make it on my favorites list. This always happens to me when I start doing my rereads. And I'm like, I have all of my 6 stars. And then I add a couple right at the end. And I love that. I love that. But Sweet Prison by Neva Altaj just came out the other day. And I read an arc of it on, like, last Saturday, I think is when I finished it. I've been on her arc team for the last, like, over, like, a year and a half. And I have to tell you that when I first started reading Neva Altaj, there was, I think, 3 of her books were out, 2 or 3 of them. I loved it. There was disability rep in there. They were fun, quick, usually pretty sweet. Like the first book, I always tell people to hold on after the first book because I'm not a huge fan of Painted Scars. I don't think it's bad, but could be better, right? But then I read Broken Whispers, love that, and throughout the series, all of them have been 4 to 5 stars all the way through, right? With Broken Whispers and Darkest Sins being my 2 favorites. Now, Darkest Sins, you do, like most of the books in the series, you don't have to read them in order. Let me just say that. You can pop around in there, go wherever you want, because she covers all different kinds of the organized crime in there. She has cartel a little bit. She has the Russians. She has the Italians. She has some Serbians. Like, she fits in all these different things. But Darkest Sins and Sweet Prison are about sisters, and they're happening at the same time for a good amount of it, because Sweet Prison is a very slow burn between step siblings, and one of these step siblings is in prison for most of the heroine's entire life. But she actually becomes basically his spy. And we know this from Darkest Sins. This is why I say you need to read that, because that's the older sister. And when some stuff goes down, she actually ends up kind of ruling in the stead of Massimo, and making some decisions for him. And there's assassination attempts that happen to her. It's crazy. Darkest Sins, again, one of my previous favorites, okay? So and the setup for Sweet Prison is great because, I mean, I know I'm telling you to read Darkest Sins, but I have to say a few things to explain Sweetest Prison. Like, at the end of Darkest Sins is when we find out that Zahara had been funneling information to Massimo, and that's how Massimo would always know everything. And I'll tell you how that happens in a moment, but that reveal happens that she's been in contact with him all this time. And when they meet him in person for the first time since they're children, because again, he's been in prison for a very specific reason, and I'll tell you in a second. And there's this crazy, like, tension that even, I forgot her name. What's her name? I forgot her name. I'm so sorry, but the Nira, is that her name? Kai and Nira, I think that's who it is. Yeah, but either way, there's this crazy tension that she sees, and she's like, what's been going on? And she's like, I've been in contact with him. So you really need to read Darkest Sins. It's great. I believe that the audiobook for that one just came out. She's almost, like, caught up now. So go grab that one, go listen to it. It's great. So with Sweet Prison, we go back in time then, and we learn how when Massimo was young, his mother was married to the girls' father, and there was a stepbrother who was just a few years younger than him, and then the two girls were much younger. Okay, so there's I believe it said there's a 17-year gap between Zahara and Massimo. So she, I think, is like 6 when a lot of this stuff goes down. And obviously he isn't thinking anything about her, but he's very close with his stepbrother. And also, like, his mom really loves her stepkids. So he doesn't care for his stepdad, but he loves his stepbrother, and his mom really loves the stepdad. Like, she always wanted daughters, and blah, 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 blah. So all this. I'm going to talk for this book way too long. It's a 6-star read. It doesn't matter. We're doing it. So, at any time, you can skip forward from this too, because I'm going to not say spoilers, but I'm going to do the Jenn thing and tell you the setup and why I love it. And maybe that's too much for you. So you can just go get it right now. The link's down below. Go read it. But I have to gush about this, and none of my friends have like read it yet. So you're going to get all of it from me right now, you know, but at any time, no one's forcing you to listen to all my spoilers about it here or my thoughts on it. But anyway, so the stepbrother, he gets killed. And Massimo, point blank, shoots the guy who killed his stepbrother. And he's like, fuck you guys. He cared about his stepbrother. He shoots him. Now, some things go a bit wrong. He's supposed to get out of this. And he ends up getting the book thrown out. Now, let's be honest. It isn't the complete book. Because if it's the complete book, he would be in prison for life without parole. But that's not quite what happens. But he gets a pretty long sentence. And I believe he's only like 19 himself. Well, what would he be? Either way, he's not that much older than his stepbrother is, and now he's in prison. So that is how that happened. Now, fast forward, like, I believe it's like 8 or 9 years. Now our heroine is in like a young teen, and there's a school assignment where she's supposed to write a relative, and she doesn't really have any relatives she can write to. Now the stepmother has died, aka Massimo's mom is gone. Her father is now ruling in Massimo's stead. And so this is where the spying comes in, because I can't remember the dad's name. I don't give a shit what his name is. He is ruling in Massimo's stead, and then he will go visit Massimo, I think like once a week in jail, and he's updating him, in prison, updating him about what's going on. And when our heroine writes this letter to him, basically for like an assignment, I believe it is, she isn't expecting, like, she doesn't know what's going to happen. And again, I think she's 14 or 15 when she writes this letter to him. And he just is kind of like a little annoyed, like, why is she writing him? But she writes him a few letters. And in one of the letters, she says something that to her, it's just her, like, you know, filling the pages with stuff to say to him, and she doesn't even know if he's getting them and everything. And she makes a comment about her dad or a family member, and Massimo realizes that it's different than what his stepdad is telling him when he comes to visit. And so Massimo gets this brilliant idea that I'm going to see if I can kind of direct this sweet child to tell me things I need to know. So thus begins a many-year-long thing of them writing letters back and forth. And now these letters, she knows, and again, he's not manipulating her entirely. Like, she knows that she's looking into things. And they come up almost with this code language. And so she's written hundreds of letters to him, and he writes back. And in some of the letters, they're using these coded things of like, the property is, you know, under bad hand. Like, they're using all these like codes so that nothing gets picked up. And he has her doing little things for him. So in all of these years, they've had this connection. Now she starts to develop feelings for him, obviously sooner than he does for her. And again, he's never seen her in all of these years. She was his little stepsister, hasn't seen her. And now he's been in prison for, I believe, like 16, 17 years. And his stepdad, her dad, dies. And so the Massimo is brought to the funeral. And this is where a lot of stuff from the other book interjects. And this is when Nera she notices something's going on. And this is the first time that Massimo sees her. And he still sees a child in his head. He thinks he's been manipulating this child into doing his bidding. And he sees her and he's like, At this point, she's 18. Of course she's 18, right? At this point, she's 18, and he sees her, and he's like, oh my gosh, I need to be careful how I'm messaging her because she's really beautiful. She's very beautiful. So anyway, now we've set the attention into it, and Massimo, who has thought that he was so in control of all of this, is realizing that he might be having feelings for his stepsister too. And all of that is going to get completely blown up when it's finally time for him to get out of prison and for Nera to hand over what she's been ruling, which she can't wait to do. Her and Kai are ready to go off into the sunset and finally get to be together. And now there is Zahara and Massimo. And what's it going to be like? So, okay, I've said enough. But yet, I didn't say much at all. You'll see when you read it. Like, it is a slow burn. And once he's out, it's very interesting to me. Like, okay, the reasons why it's a 6-star, instead of just telling you the entire plot. Let me point out a few of the things that really made this a 6-star for me. Number one, this is perfectly imperfect series. So, in this one, there aren't any, like, disabilities or debilitating things. Our heroine has a skin condition. I can't remember what it's called. If I remember to, I'll put the word right here, but it's that one where you have patches of different colored skin. So she has always wore very long clothes. She tries to keep her face covered because she's been teased very horribly. You know, no one's expecting her to have a good marriage or any of those things to happen. And she's a seamstress. She loves to do that. And she's been very quiet and shy and hidden away. But these letters with Massimo and the tasks that he's asked her to do have led her to be bolder than she ever would have been. But anyway, and then on his side of things, okay, part of the reason this made me so happy. So he develops kind of a split personality. I don't mean to use that in the actual, like, you know, I don't think he has DID or whatever they're calling it these days now. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm like, I don't know what they're calling it now. It's not quite that. He more so gets kind of like an alpha in his head. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. He gets that he through all, you know, all of his time in prison and solitary and being his own company and being paranoid, this man who was in quite a bit of control, he started to like push all of that into one spot so he can be in control. And he literally has a voice in his head. And why I said, if you know, you know, is because when this voice talks to him, it's in a bold type, right? And if you've read Wolf Gone Wild, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Okay, it's not exactly the same, but it kind of is. And so he has his like rational brain, and then he has the possessive alpha brain. So yeah, and that possessive alpha brain side is something that our heroine discovers that she really likes, and she would like him to let it out more than that. But this is a forbidden relationship, even though there's no blood relation, even though they haven't seen each other in 16 years. The mafia, being very traditional in that, they're gonna find it a little weird that these step siblings might be having something going on, and there may be some issues with that. So I've spent 15 minutes talking about that one, but it's a 6-star read, so I get to gush about those more than anything else. I haven't even touched on all the things that make it perfect for me, but I love this couple. I love the slow burn. There's so many quotes that I pulled out for this one because the way that he thinks of her, I have to move on. But this isn't the last time I'm going to talk about this book. I'm going to talk about it more. I want to give more people a chance to read it because it just came out on Friday. But it was out of this world. So great. It's my favorite one by this author. It's my favorite mafia I read this year. The slow burn, the tension, the way he thinks of her, just, the way that her character growth happens. We got so much to talk about still. All right, next up was She's a Wild One by Kristen Proby. This is now out. I listened to an ALC of this one, as I have for most of the series, which I just love. This one is book 5 in the Wilds of Montana. It does wrap up the Wilds of Montana. And this one was narrated by Sebastian York, who, one of my all-time faves, he's brilliant, and Grace Grant, who I don't know that I've heard before. really like her, will be looking for more books narrated by her. Loved it. And yeah, this was provided by Must Love Audio for me. And this one is the youngest wild sibling, who of course is a daughter, because that's how it goes, and the oldest sibling of the rival family, the Lexingtons. So Holden, he I think is 38, and our heroine is, I believe, is he 38? Let me add in my head. He is he's 38, and she would be like 27, I think. And this is a second chance romance, which we maybe kind of were suspecting based on some interactions that have happened in previous books. But of course, their rival families, their ranches line up to each other. The Lexingtons have a sadistic fuck of a father. I am not even scratching the surface with that guy. We won't get into it, but trigger warnings around that guy involve very abusive to his family, a complete slimeball, mostly a murderer, animal torturer. Yes, there are mentions of animal cruelty in here. It's not graphic or whatever, but we know that that fuck did stuff. And part of the reason the girls never had horses to ride or little animals to love is because if they had something they loved, that father would fuck with it. He was a evil man, okay? And I mean, let's just be real. That's the reason why Holden wasn't with Millie all this time, because it was already going to be an uphill battle, because rightly so, the wild father, I forgot his name, but you know, the patriarch, who is still alive in the series, the parents have like retired and Remy is the one who runs it, but like the parents are still around, and the dad absolutely despised this man, which is fair. But because of that, he didn't want like the kids around anyone at all, and he certainly wouldn't have been okay with Holden being with Millie. But the way that this story starts is we get the backstory, and it does that thing with the backstory that I love, okay? You know, I get so tired. I don't want flashbacks really much at all. I'm not a huge fan of them. I'd rather you pick the time that your narrative starts and go with it. I'm not a huge fan of the like all over the place. I don't love it. So this one starts with a prologue that starts 8 years ago, and Holden is 30 and Millie is 19. And we find out that they've been seeing each other and secretly, you know, this summer that she's home from college, and they are ready to be together. And literally they do. They have sex for the first time in the back of his truck. It's so a country song. But the dad has found out, and the dad threatens Millie and his sister. And that's the thing, is when you read this prologue, you are like, really? Is that a good enough reason to break this girl's heart? It kind of is. Because this man, like when you first hear that in the prologue, it's kind of the thing like, oh, he broke up with her because of the parent. Like, you're 28, you're an adult, like, come on, you know, like that's what you're thinking because of what he does to break Millie's heart. Because he knows Millie, and he knows that this Spitfire, this kick-ass girl, she would not let him walk away from it unless he obliterates her heart, and he does that. And it hurts, right? And now we're forward 8 years. She's back in town. She's bought her coffee shop. All of her brothers have wives who we love. They're part of the iconic women's collective. They're women supporting women, and it's all really cute. Okay, it's cute. But the sick fuck is dead, right? Ding dong, the dick is dead. Okay, he's gone. And Holden now has a chance with Millie. And not only that, his father, this horrible man, without even realizing it, gave him the perfect in, because he thought he was really messing with Holden by making his property and inheritance dependent on Holden getting married and being married for at least a year before he could have his inheritance, which Holden was left everything. So his younger sisters, of which I think there's 3, who he calls his girls, he basically raised them, kept them safe since their mom died when he was very young. He has been protecting them. And now you might also see a reason why he had to break up with Millie, who he wanted the best for her. And it was going to be, it was going to be rough. That dad was he was a piece of work. And so, but the dad didn't specify who he could marry, which was really quite an oversight on his, maybe he thought he had beaten this man into submission at this point, but no, because what does Holden do? If you've read the previous books, you know that he has started coming into Millie's shop and flirting with her a little bit, letting her kind of get some of her anger at him out. And he goes to her with this, and he uses his sisters. He's like, there's nobody else I'm going to marry, Millie. And so if you want my sisters to have this and you want to help, you have to marry me. Because he's like, I'm not marrying anyone else. So now he's in. He's all in. There's nothing holding him back. To get the best for his sisters, Millie is the one that he needs, and Millie can't say no to him. And as soon as this marriage of that's only supposed to last a year has started, I really love it too, because you'll see, I read another like marriage of convenience one, and there's always the rules, right? There's always the rules that like, we're not going to sleep in the same bed, and you know, you're not going to call me pet names, and you're not going to touch me. And Holden is just like, no. Like the first night they don't sleep in the same room, and he's like, that's not happening. Nope. He's like, I'm using this year to prove to you that, number one, like, there was a reason why I did what I did and all these things. So I had the best time with this one. I did. It was so good watching them reconnect. And it's that type of one where, like, a lot of times when it's the parents keep us apart, it doesn't feel like a good enough reason. Okay, it doesn't. But when you see the visceral hate that the wild patriarch has for this man, and you hear the things that he's done and the threats that he's made and the things he's done, number one, you're like, though, how did nobody arrest this guy? That's the only thing I'm worried about, is I'm like, how has no one arrested this sick son of a bitch before he died? But other than that, you're like, you believe it. You believe he would have done the things. And so sure, that meant Holden had to be the sacrificial lamb, but at the time it was, he had to do it. So yeah, I loved it, and I loved how he wins over her brothers, and I love where the Wild and the Lexingtons end up by the end of this book. And we set up the next series, which, who has 3 sisters who need to fall in love? Oh, right, it's Holden. And there's also a group of brothers called are they the Byrne brothers? I don't know, but we can introduce them. The next one that's starting off, is it Shall We Burn or We Will Burn? I don't know, whatever. But it's going to be with Holden's sister, Danny, who seems to be a little neurodivergent. I think she might be. I don't know. But either way, the hero is a single dad, and we're in, right? Start a series off with a single dad. That's all I need. I'm in. So I spent a half an hour talking about 2 books. Yep. I'm not panicking. You're panicking. It's fine. It's fine. But I gave it 5 stars, everybody. It was a 3.5 on the spice scale. There is some good stuff in here. I ain't even talking about all the little things. This has secret tattoos, secret piercings. It has dirty talk. It has It Was Always You, possessive, hurt, comfort, love, like grumpy sunshine. It's so good. It's wonderful. Go read this one. Get the audiobook. As always, yes, you can jump right to the 5th book if you want, but I liked 4 out of the 5 of these books. So start at the beginning. Have yourself a good old binge. The whole series is out. All right, next up, I will talk quickly about this because I did a beta read for Stevie Sparks, who you guys might know. I read this author for the first time last year, and I really enjoyed her. She writes some kind of spicier historicals, and they're set in an interesting time. They're set like right after World War I. And I like that. I mean, that's an interesting time for them to be set. So this one, the Earl's Gamble, isn't quite related to the Duke series she has, but it is like sideways connected. And we actually see Michael, who is the hero of book 1 of that series, pop up in this one. But this is actually about Griff and Rose, and Rose's brother actually was a soldier under Griff in the war, and she is now in a workhouse because her brother has died and her husband has died, and she's actually has a injury or a limp or a disability. She has something. I know she has to walk with a cane, and so she's in a workhouse, which is basically like a prison because there's really strict rules for what you can do. You have to work for your food and a place to sleep, but yet that's all that you do. So it's basically like being in prison. You have no free will. And it's the anniversary of her brother's death, so she's going to go to his grave, and she happens to run into Griff there, and they've never met each other, but they've both heard of each other. And he sees the state that she's in, and he's immediately like, I'm not doing right by my friend and my soldier under my command's sister to make her go back to this workhouse. So he invites her to stay with him, because he's like, I have a big old house and you can stay with me, and once you're feeling up to it, maybe we'll find you a position somewhere. She currently is like a seamstress at the place or whatever, and so she moves in with him. So it's only 100 plus pages, and I don't want to like rate it or tell you those things because it was just a beta read. It's still a while since this is coming out, but I am now on her beta team, so we'll see how that goes in the future. So yeah. Okay, next up was Undeniably Married by Saman. So this one comes out on December 27th, but I had the ALC. I always get the ALCs for this series really early because the author is on top of it. And so I don't want to talk too much about this one because you can't read it yet. Listen to me say that about like Sweet Prison, but this one is a Married in Vegas. It's a runaway bride, and then she ends up getting married in Vegas. So this one is a Friends to Lovers. It's Mason, who in this one, this is a reverse age gap. That's such a weird thing to say. The woman's older. She's 7 years older, and she's a doctor. This is all a doctor series, basically, and he's a football player. And the beginning is actually her wedding, and it's kind of funny, but it's also the classic story of like she was going to be marrying a football player who actually was like the hero's previous teammate, I think. He's now retired and he's going to be a coach, but that's how they kind of had like met each other through. He's friends with her like family, and yeah, he's just seen as the sweet like, you know, younger friend. He's 7 years younger than her, but he's had the hots for her right away. But soon after meeting her, he discovered she was dating a teammate, and then they're engaged. And now at the beginning of this, she's just discovered that her fiance was cheating. And even up to the night before, I will never understand that. Why are you marrying someone if you are fucking someone else the whole time? Like I don't understand it, and I'll never understand it. It doesn't make sense. But she ends up blowing off the wedding then, and is like, she reads out all the text messages he was saying to his friend, because I got sent to his iPad, and she had like used his iPad for something, and she found him. And so she blows it all up, and it's great. And it just so happens that Mason is coming late to the wedding because he was not excited to be there, and he's her getaway driver, and he takes advantage of this moment. He's like, you know what? Let's get out of town. There's going to be lots of people looking at this because both her and her fiance are pretty like well known and everything. So it's like, let's get out of here. And so he convinces her to go to Vegas. So he doesn't convince her to marry him. That's all on her. Because while they're there getting drunk and gambling and having fun, her fiance is playing the victim. He's playing the victim. He said, my iPad got hacked. I just want a chance to explain it, honey. And he's giving interviews already. And it's clear that he thinks she's just going to come back to him and they're still going to get married. Because he's that delusional. He's that delulu, okay? And so she's like, we got to make it so that he can't get me back. And she talks Mason in to marrying her. And now it's not too difficult to do, but he's like, you're going to regret this. And to her, she's like, well, we'll get an annulment. It's fine. And he's like, it would devastate me because I love her. And he's like, if I do this, she's going to want to get out of it and like all these things. But he goes through with it. And then to luck for him, their PR people are like, you know, you should stay married for at least 3 months. Let this die out, and then we'll get you out of it. And so, as with, you know, a previous one where it's like he's going to use those 3 months to prove that he'd be an amazing husband. And there's a wrench thrown in it because, and this is said in the blurb, which I do appreciate, this is also an accidental pregnancy. But who will the father of said accidental pregnancy be is what we'll have to see. So this was great. As I listened to this one, it was narrated by Dane Anderson, who again, possibly a new to me narrator. Don't know if I've listened to him before. Emma Wilder, love her, definitely know her for sure. So yeah, this one was number 4 in Boston's Irresistible Billionaires. There is some fun little spice in this one too. There was some butt play, spanking, some breath play. And then yeah, it's an older woman, friends to lovers, sports, married in Vegas, all those good things. And I gave it a 4.5, and it's a 3.5 on the spice scale. Okay, next up, I read Atonement by Oneredshoe. This was a fan fiction. This was a Lucius and Hermione. It was actually kind of a friends to lovers. She has PTSD. It was a quick one. I I don't know if I recommend it, honestly, because it wasn't bad, but it also, like, Lucius was too nice in this one. I know. But why am I reading Lucius? I'm not reading him to be so sweet as he is, right? So it was just okay. So I don't think it's bad. But it also was pretty low spice, and it just was like, it was just okay. Okay. Next, there was Big Daddy by Daisy Jane. So this was a like surprise release, okay? Daisy Jane's been kind of fast and loose with some of her releases this year, which is fine. You know, she's still figuring everything out after some weirdness that happened for her earlier this year with people stealing books and everything. And what's a way to not get your stuff pirated, but to not even offer ARCs, to just drop it cold? Like, that definitely works sometimes if you can do it. So this one, I of course picked it up. I knew it was going to be spicy. I knew it was going to be a lot. It's called Big Daddy. I knew that it was going to be some daddy kink in here. But really kind of, this also has a foot fetish in it. Because our heroine is a like sex worker on a, you know, kind of one of those sites, and she sells feet videos and doing things with those. And the hero is actually her friend's dad, which I haven't read this series yet, but there is a MFM or MMF, I can't remember, that is like about Brielle, and I haven't read that one yet, but I do know about it. And I know that's a polyamorous relationship, but anyway, it's Brielle's dad. So this book connects with that somehow. And we do see Brielle and her men in that one, or in this one. But Winnie ends up actually working for Quincy's business, and he finds out about her side hustle, and he starts to become really into it. And one thing leads to another, and they end up doing things together. But Winnie is really worried about ruining her relationship with Brielle, and honestly Quincy is as well. So there's a lot of like, that is mostly what the drama in this one is worrying about Brielle, when it's also kind of like Brielle's in a kinky relationship too, okay? She doesn't have a leg to stand on in this case. But again, I haven't read her book, so I don't know what her dad is like with her. I don't know what the friend did. Like, I don't know any of those things. So if you have, maybe you do. But basically this one was, it's an erotic romance, so it has all of that jazz going on. There was some butt play, there's the foot fetish, there's a breeding kink, praise kink, dom and brat behavior, and then for trigger warnings, there's alcohol, grief, and some mental health things. So I just didn't end up connecting with the characters, and that is something that's tough in an erotic romance. It is. It's why I have a very high standard for erotic romance. It can be sexy, it can just be erotica, and that's fine if that's what it is. But if we're going for erotic romance, there's some heavy lifting that has to get done, because the tendency with erotic romance is to rely on the sex, and that's not everything. I've shared this. Like, there can be erotic romance that only has 3 or 4 sex scenes in it, because it's about the character growth is happening through the sex when it's erotic romance. You can still have a very smutty book that if you took all the sex out of it, it was still a romance, right? Anyway, we don't have time to get it. We're not getting into that today. But you still have to build connection with the characters to make me believe their romance, even if it's erotic romance. At least for me. Maybe other people don't feel that way, but erotic romance is different than erotica. They are different things. And sometimes Daisy Jane does that really well for me. You know, like, there are some really fun ones I read this year from her that did do that for me. And so the romance was really good, and the people were a little kinky, right? Like, The Man I Know is one I love using that. That was the first Daisy Jane that I read. And that one just blew me away. I loved it so much. And that was about a couple exploring things together, which was great. So yeah, this one just didn't do that for me. And maybe it was hard to lock in with it, especially after, because I was reading this one in the background of a few others. Like, I started it about a week ago, and it was my nighttime book. And so reading that in comparison to, you know, like Sweet Prison and She's a Wild One, it's tough for it to hold up. It just is. It's tough for it to hold up. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 3 stars, and it was a 4.5 on the spice scale. Okay, then I had just 2 more to talk about. So I had a reread of Blue Coral. Yes, see the filter on my camera. People always tell me sometimes when I do my makeup, like just how great it is. And there are filters, just so you know, there are filters. And you can very much tell by the fact that I'm holding up this blue book. Now, this is a very blue book, I will tell you that, but it's almost iridescent when I hold it up, but that's okay. I love the like character covers on these ones for sure. So this is book 3 in the Nog Brides, and I'm rereading these ones and annotating them for one of my patrons. She likes these ones. And this one is about Vegan, who is the blue coral, obviously, that's the name of this. This is Vegan, and Shelby. And I love this. You can see on the cover, so Shelby has these altered eyes because she is a part of the team that is, you know, on this planet or whatever. And there was a high cost for her to be a part of this team. A lot of times if the women want to be a part of it, they have to be sterilized so that they know there won't be any babies as complications later on. And that's kind of an awkward thing, because if you've read this series from the beginning, you know that Shelby wasn't handed over to the Nagas with, is it Grace and... I can't remember her name. They get handed over in the beginning, and she isn't, because Collins, who's kind of her like boy toy or whatever, say that she's pregnant. Well, if any of the men on their team knew what the women have to go through to be on the team, like some of them, they wouldn't have believed that. So she told them she was pregnant, and so she wasn't handed over. But here's the thing. Vegan knows that she's his mate. And Vegan knows that she's not pregnant because he can smell. And he's like, she's not breeding, like she ain't. So he's been stalking and waiting for her. Now, he went a little over the edge in a previous book and got himself a little bit of a beat down from actually one of the heroines, stabbed him almost to death because he was trying to use her as bait to get Shelby to come out. Not his brightest moment, we'll just say. So in the beginning of this book, he's in a very weakened state, and there's a thing that goes down with Shelby and Collins, and the building that they're in, like, part of it collapses, and they fall down, like, this, like, elevator shaft or whatever, and Vegan has been watching, and he actually is able to grab her before it falls, and he falls on top of her, and he's holding up part of the building on him, and so she would have been squished immediately. Sorry, I'm like looking down. She's being squished. And if he hadn't put his body there, she would be dead. But now, like, it's slowly pushing him down onto her. And so they have this moment under there where they think they're both going to die. And he's like, I finally got you. It's so romantic. And they actually kiss because she thinks she's about to be squished. Well, Collins, a shithead that he is, does actually end up helping get them out. And he's like, let's pull you out and then I'm going to shoot him in the face because... To be fair to Collins, like, I don't love Collins, okay, I have problems with him. But in the moment of what's happening, he knows what those snaky things are doing to the women. And he has had a thing with Shelby. He liked her. They've slept together before. He cares about her. And he's like, I'm not helping this snake man get out. He's going to take you and rape you. Like, that's what he thinks. So we're supposed to be annoyed with Collins, like, all the way through this book. And I got to tell you, like, I saw his point of view the first time I read it, and I saw it this time. Now, my opinion of him changes as we go, but in the beginning, I'm like, I understand it. So anyway, obviously Collins doesn't shoot him in the head, and these two are going to end up together eventually. So this one's all right. I originally gave this one 5 stars when I read it. I did move it down to a 4 this time. Rereading this series, I'm discovering that a lot of the times with certain alien or creature romances, my love for them comes from the initial shock value. Like, I'm just saying that. I've said it. I give bonkers books 5 stars. It's why I have a 6-star tier, so that I can differentiate from it. Because if a book gives me a good time, that's what it's supposed to do. And sometimes I don't expect anything more. But some books, when you revisit them, you were like, yeah, this doesn't really hold up. I kind of just liked it because it was crazy. So I did bump my rating down to a 4-star for this one. This series is still fun. If you're reading it for the first time, you're going to have a really good time with it. You know what I mean? But for me, I'm just kind of like, it's tougher to reread them and see how ridiculous everything is upon a second glance, you know? But they're still fun. And I still stand by that series. It's just, I'm like, looking for more in it that when I first read, I felt like I was getting, because I also didn't know what the reveals were. And so it's more thrilling when you don't know what's going on. So anyway, 4 stars, 3 on the spice scale. Definitely violence. There is sterilization, kind of forced sterilization, because it was like, do you want this job or not type of thing. And then, yeah. Humans modified against their will, stuff like that. Okay. All right. So then the last book that I finished was Duke of Wrath by Mariah Stone. And this is a new series from her. I mean, this book's already been out, but the audiobooks are coming out, right? And Mariah Stone, I first found this year because of Must Love Audio. Shane East, his production company, does all those. And then Must Love Audio is like started by Shane East and a few other narrators. And so I love that we get most of the books that Shane narrates. I really do. And I love when he does historical romances. So I listen to a lot of Mariah Stone's books because him and Justine Eyre do Mariah Stone's books. So they're not first person point of view, but she does like switch between male and female. So we're able to do that. And this one is a arranged marriage, basically, a marriage to save her family. Our heroine's name is Patient Rose. And then we have Dorian, the Duke of Wrath. Okay, so first, let's get it out of the way. This series is going to be called The 7 Dukes of Sin. All right, the fact that there are 7 dukes, all with names that correspond with the 7 sins, right? We got pride, lust, irreverence, excess, like all those names are going to be them. I do think some of them are clever, like irreverence and excess for like gluttony, and fine, it's cool. But it is also weird that like it's the Duke of Wrath and his heroine is patience, to show that patience is the virtue against wrath's vice. And then like it becomes obvious who is going to be in the next book, which that happens in every book, so I'm not judging that. But lust is really close friends with Wrath, and Wrath's sister, her name is Chastity. So I wonder who's going to pair up. We're going to have lust and chastity. And I'm like, are we going to do this? Is it going to be pride and humility? Or like, is that what their names are going to be? Like, I don't know. So there is, first off, a cheese factor. You just got to let go. If you're going to get into it, you just got to let go. So yeah, but anyway, so Dorian, we'll just say this, he's the reason that Patient's oldest brother is dead. And because her oldest brother is dead, I won't go into all the details. It's a mystery about what happened, all those things, but her brother's dead. And she is one of 6 sisters now, and they're basically like gonna end up in the poorhouse. Their father's gonna go to debtor's prison because they spent all this money on the brother's education, and you know, he was supposed to make money back to help them, and he's dead. And so Dorian actually finds out that they're about to be destitute, and he feels very guilty because of said brother being dead. And his aunt, who basically raised him, and his sister, he loves her very much, she wants grandbabies. Now, he doesn't necessarily plan to give her grandbaby, like he's like, don't want that. But he decides to appease her and at least take a wife and support the man's family who he feels responsible for murdering. So his brainchild idea is that he'll marry the youngest because she'll be the quietest and most biddable, and then he can marry her, and they need to stay married for 1 year, like actively, and then he will give her family an estate and put them up and blah, blah, blah. That's his reasoning, I guess, okay? I'm not sure what all the reasoning is, whatever. Also not sure why they have to be, like, together for 1 year like that when he isn't planning to sleep with her in the set, like, he's not planning to. I mean, of course, that doesn't last, but... And then also, because there's the 7 Dukes of Sin, of course there's got to be a sex club that they go to. And of course, the minute that he marries this girl, he runs off to this sex club, but then can't because no one else is getting my dick hard anymore. Sometimes I do like the magical moment of like, as soon as you say I do to the person, your dick doesn't work for anyone else but her. Like, I'm okay with that being an unbelievability. But he likes to give discipline, obviously, for the wrath thing. It helps him feel in control. And he's like, well, I can't do that with my sweet, delicate wife. But she just keeps pushing his buttons. She is actually a botanist. She loves to create, she loves to work on her roses. She's trying to create a new type of rose. And so she's not quite as meek as he thought she would be. Now she is, like her name, she's very patient. And so he pushes her away and pushes her away. And she's just pick, 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 pick. I'm going to find out all your secrets. And there becomes a point where this was actually really sweet. I'll say this and then we'll wrap this one up because we're actually under an hour. I'm really proud of myself here. She has slept in bed with someone her whole life because she's the youngest of 7 siblings and they weren't super wealthy. So she's always slept beside her sister. And for the first, I believe few weeks that she's lived with her husband, she's been sleeping alone. She's not supposed to go to his rooms. She doesn't even know that she wants to have sex. Yes, she is that type of virgin, which, you know what? She's 18, the youngest of none of her sisters are married. I believe it. It's one of those where I believe her virginalness just because she's not even one of the book readers. She doesn't even have that thing of I'm reading spicy books to find out or anything. That is often the thing in historicals, right? But she doesn't want to sleep alone. And so one night she literally gets into his room and she's like, I want to sleep in here. I'm not sleeping. And he's like, you broke the rule. You're in here. I'm going to punish you. And she's like, okay, but I want to sleep in here. And so this one interaction, he's like, I will either you have to clean the library or I'll spank you. And he's like, she's going to prick the library. She doesn't want to get spanked. And she's like, okay, if you spank me, can I sleep here tonight? And he's like, what? I thought you'd pick the library. And she's like, no, I that badly need to sleep here. And so, of course, he spanks her and she gets a little bit hot from it. And then they sleep in there together and she has the best night of sleep. So that's just the start of some things, but I thought that was cute. And that is actually the point in the book where I was like, all right, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. And not because it was hot, because it is, but it's because she shows she's willing to push his boundaries and not run away when he gets angry or tries to push her away with his wrath. But she also is like, I'm just going to see. She's like, I don't actually think he would hurt me. So do it, and it pays off. Her gamble pays off. And I like that about her. So yes, this was very cheesy. But yes, I'm going to read the next one. And once you get past the okay, this is set up with these tropes, it's the 7 deadly sins. We've seen it. She's not the first author to do this, and that's okay. So many authors have done that game. It's all right. It's not that's a copycat of anything because everybody does it. Really, they do. There's tons of authors. I do think the heroines' names being the virtue to the vice is either really cool or just kind of really. I'll be interested to see how they do it with everyone. We'll see if she can hold it off. But the biggest unbelievability, this is where I was going to say in the beginning to round this out, is that there's 7 dukes in England who are friends and all around the same age in their 20s and 30s. That would literally be 1/4 the entire population of dukes. And they all are friends around the same age who all go to a sex club together. That's the biggest unbelievability of it. There are between 28 and 31 dukes in all of that area. And there always has been. So anyway, just a fun fact for historical romance lovers. There could have been the Earl of Excess or, the Baron of whatever. She could have switched it up. But no, we just went for 7 dukes. And I'm like, honey, okay, this suspend your disbelief. But I did give it 4 stars. It was because it's a audiobook too, right? So this was Shanice and Justine Eyre, and I did round this up to 4 to keep it there, and it's a 2.5 on the spice scale. And this does have trigger warnings for SA, though not to either of the MCs, none of them doing it. There's duels, violence, anger management issues, and a little bit of self-harm happening too. So thank you so much for watching this. We're going to round this up right now. I appreciate you all so much. Again, please, please, please check out my Patreon. You don't have to spend a dime and you can win some really cool prizes. Also, if you are interested, like I said, free shipping through Tuesday on everything in my shop. Trying to clear out some stuff so in the new year we can get some new designs going and everything. And yeah, I appreciate you all so much. There's links to all the books I talked about down below, and we'll see you next week. Bye.